Welcome to Congregation Beth Yeshurun. It's a pleasure to have everyone here as we celebrate Shabbat and celebrate the Bar Mitzvah of Nathan Kalman. To begin our service this morning, it's a pleasure to call upon Nathan's parents, Amy and Murray, to come up to the bima and present a talit to their son, Nathan, on the occasion of his Bar Mitzvah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotah v'tivanu le'nitateh b'tzitzit.
Amen. And we're now ready to begin our service. As the cantor begins our prayers, we turn to page 147 in our Siddur as we begin towards the top of the page, Shochenat.
Shochenat maron v'kadosh shemo v'chatuv raninu tzadikim Adonai la'yesharim navateilah b'fi yesharim titalal ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ומחלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל. לאדון לשבח, לפעל, לרומם, להדל, לברך, להלל ולקלס, על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות, דוד בן ישי עבדך משיחך. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם, ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אלכי העולמים.
Please rise, page 148.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמד יברא קריותי וימליך מלכותי, בחיי חון וביום מחון ובחיי תכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולמי עולמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתעלה ויתעלה ויתעלה, שמי די קודשה בריחו לילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן ועלמה ואמרו אמן.
Please remain standing now as Nathan leads us in the Baruch Hu, page 149.
Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Yotzer or uvorei Hoshe, Hosei Shalom, uvorei et hakol.
And you may be seated now as we continue on page 150.
אפס פרדך גולים לימות המשיח, ואין דומה לך מושיענו לתחיית המתים.
151.
אל אדון על כל המעשים, ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה, קולו וטיובו מלאו.
153.
תתברך משה ושבח מעשה ידיך, ואומרי אור שעשית יפרוך הסלע. Page 153. וכולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושה וטהרה, בשירה ובזמרה ובזמרה, בשירה ובזמרה ובזמרה, ומברכים ומשבחים ומפארים ומעריצים ומקדישים וממליכים את שם האל המלך הגדול הגיבור והנורא, קדוש הוא. להקדיש יוצא מנחת רוח בשפה ברורה ואימה קדושה, כולם כחלונים ואומרים ביראה, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. Bottom of the page. Bottom of the page.
Or Hadash Al Zion Ta'ir Venite Hulanu Meheyale Oro Baruch Atah Adonai Yotzer HaMeorot.
It's the middle of 154. Nathan leads us in Vahavienu.
Vahavienu leshalom me'arba kanfot haaretz vetolihenu komemiu le'artzenu ki el poho yushodata ve'avanu vaharta mikol velashon vekiravtanu leshim hagadol sela bemet lehodot leha uyahedeha be'ava baruch atah Adonai haboher b'amo Yisrael be'ava.
Join together with Nathan, page 155 in the Shema.
Shem Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad ve'afta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anohim etavecha hayom alavavecha v'shivnatam levanecha v'dibarta ba'am v'shivteha b'veiteha uvlefteha v'derech uv'shovbeha uvkumeha uvshartam leot al yadeha v'hayu letotafot beineneha uvtavtam al mezuzot beiteha uvishareha.
We continue silently, page 156. Middle of the page, we join together, Vayomer Adonai.
ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל ואמרת עליהם, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם ודורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף את תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית, וריתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריכם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. Page 157. פודנו מצילה מעולם שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך. עזרת אבותינו אתה הוא מעולם. תהילות לאל עליון ברוך ומבורך, משה בני ישראל לכנו שירה, בשמחה רבה ואמרו עולם. מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות, עושה פלא. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים, לשמך אספת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם אבד. צור ישראל בעזרת ישראל, ועובדי חינומך יהודה ישראל, גואלנו לאדוני צבאות, שמו קדוש ישראל. ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל.
We join together with Nathan at the opening of the Amidah, page 159.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzhak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rahel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor Ve'hanora El Elyon Gomel Hasadim Tovim Ve'konei Hakol Ve'zoher Hasdei Avot Umevi Goel Livnei V'neihem Leman Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer Ufoked Umoshia Umagen Baruch atah Adonai Magen Avraham Ufoked Sarah Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai Mehayeh Meitim Atah Rav Lehoshia Mashiv Harua Umorid Hagashem Mechakel Hayim Behesed Mehayeh Meitim Berahamim Rabbi Somech Noflim Verofeh Homlim Umatir Asuri Umekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Mi Hamo Habal Gevurot Umidom Melech Memi Umehayeh Umatzmiya Yeshua Benemanata Lehayot Meitim Baruch atah Adonai Mehayeh HaMeitim.
Page 161.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בישמי מרום, ככתוב ביד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק, משמיעים מלכנו תופיע, ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו, ותמלוך עלינו, כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון, תתגדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור ונצח נצחים, ועינינו תראינה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך, על ידי דוד משיח צדקך, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה.
Join with Nathan, the bottom of the page, Ledor Vador.
Ledor vador, ledor vador nagigod leha, ledor vador, ledor vador, ledor vador nagigod leha, ulaneta netahim, ulaneta netahim, kedush taha nagdish, veshivha Eloheinu mi pinu lo yamush. Lo yamush le'olam va'ed, ledor vador, ledor vador, ledor vador nagid god leha, ledor vador, ledor vador, ledor vador nagid god leha, ki el melech gadol, gadol vekadosh, gadol vekadosh atah, baruch atah, atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh.
Continue silently, pages 162 through 166. Please be seated as you conclude the Amidah. Continue with Kaddish Shalem.
יתקרא ויתקרא שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה קירותי, וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובמכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה. בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירן מעולמה, ואמרו אמן. גבות לא תהון ובאותן כל ישראל, קדם עוון ושמיה, ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו amen.
Good morning again, everyone, and welcome again to Congregation Beth Yeshurun. We've reached the heart of our service, the Seder Kriyat HaTorah, our Torah service. If you have an honor during our Torah service this morning, Aliyah, an ark opening, I ask you to come forward and please sit here in this section of our sanctuary so our Rabbi can send you up at the appropriate times during our Torah service this morning. So everyone with an honor or Torah reading, ark opening during the Torah service, please do come sit over here in this section of our sanctuary. And we turn to page 168, and we begin at the very top of the page as we prepare to take the Torah out of the ark, Ein Kamocha.
אין כמוך ואלוהים אדוני, ואין כמעשיך, מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. אב הרחמים, היטיב ברצונך את ציון. תבנה חומות ירושלים, תבנה חומות ירושלים. כי בך לבד בטחנו, מלך ערם ונישא, אדון עולמים.
Please rise.
ויהי בן צהרון ויאמר משה, קומה אדוני ויפוצו אויביך וינוסו משנאיך מפניך. כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. ברוך שנתן תורה, תורה, ברוך שנתן תורה, תורה, לעמו ישראל בקדושתו.
Page 170.
ביון הרוחץ ולישמע קדישה, קדישה יקירה, אנא אמות ושפכן. ביון הרוחץ, ביון הרוחץ, ולישמע קדישה, קדישה יקירה, אנא אמות ושפכן. יהי ראווה קודמך, דתפתח ליבי באורייתא, ותשלים משאלין דליבי, וליבה דכל עמך ישראל, לטוב ולחיים ולשלום.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo. Gadlu Adonai iti, unemar mema shemo yachdav.
Lecha Adonai hagedula vehagevura, hatiferet vehanetzach vehahod. Ki chol bashamayim uvaretz, ki chol bashamayim uvaretz. Lecha Adonai הממלכה והמתנשא לכל ראש. רוממו, רוממו, אדוני אלוהינו, והשתחוו, והשתחוו, לאדום רגליו קדוש הוא. רוממו, רוממו, אדוני אלוהינו, והשתחוו, והשתחוו, להר קודשו. כי קדוש, כי קדוש, אדוני אלוהינו.
You may be seated. This is a very special Torah reading, as many of you may know. The Israelites left Egypt. They crossed the Red Sea. Crossing the Red Sea was last week. This week, they're standing at Mount Sinai. So this is the dramatic moment where we become God's treasured people, as it says in the words we're about to read. But it's not an automatic given that we will be God's treasured people. God says, actually, if you will hearken to my words and faithfully keep my covenant, then you shall be a treasured people. What makes us special is the way of life that's inscribed in the Ten Commandments and in the rest of the Torah. That's what we're going to be reading this morning. And as we read the passage of the Ten Commandments itself, we're going to dramatically recreate it for ourselves. And everybody is going to stand up as we recite the Ten Commandments, as the Ten Commandments are chanted from the Torah. And we're going to stand up as our ancestors did 3,200 years ago when they stood listening to these very words at Mount Sinai. This is a covenant. It's a contract. It's a contract we have upheld for 3,200 years. And through it, we have been able to introduce to the world concepts of justice and fairness, kindness and compassion, and we have maintained a strong community based on the rituals and calendar, life cycles, and diet that the rest of the Torah prescribes. This is that essential moment. It's also seen by our sages as a wedding, the wedding between God, our Creator, and us. And as we know, at a Jewish wedding, there is always a ketubah, a written wedding contract. And in our case, the ketubah is the Ten Commandments that we're going to read. We're going to be starting in the last third of this week's Torah portion. It starts on chapter 19, verse 1, page 436.
Ve'yazor Yagem Yoshel Kol Hagozim B'Amar Ramein Hakol Avukad Eloheinu Tnu Chavod LaTorah Yamad Rishon Baruch Shenatan Torah L'Am Yisrael B'Kedushato V'Atem Advikim B'Adonai Elohechem Hayim Ochem Hayam.
For the first Aliyah, we call Nathan's uncle and aunt, Terry and Richard Rohan. The reader is a member of the Beth Yeshurun Yacht Squad, Summer Rebino.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'nasa lanu es toraso. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen.
בחודש השלישי לצאת בני ישראל מארץ מצרים ביום הזה באו מדבר סיני וייסעו מרפדים ויבואו מדבר סיני ויחנו במדבר ויהן שם ישראל נגד ההר ומשה עלה אל האלוהים ויקרא אליו אדוני מן ההר לאמור כה תאמר לבית יעקב ותגיד לבני ישראל אתם ראיתם אשר עשיתי למצרים ואשא אתם על כנפי נשרים ואביא אתם אלי ועתה אם שמוע תשמעו בקולי ושמרתם את בריתי והייתם לי סגולה מכל העמים כי לי כל הארץ ואתם תהיו לי ממלכת כהנים וגוי קדוש אלה הדברים אשר תדבר אל בני ישראל.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher nasa lanu Torah semes v'haolam natav v'sochenu. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen.
Yamdu Sheni.
Just a minor note, the chapter 19 opened with the words, on the third new moon, the Israelites had, since they had left Egypt. The third new moon, as you know, we count months from the new moon. The third new moon makes it the month of Sivan. The verses that follow are how we get about 6 days into the month of Sivan. And that's how the rabbis calculated that the Ten Commandments was given on the 6th day of Sivan, which is Shavuot. Right? So we knew it was going to be in Sivan. They kind of eke out 6 days with the following verses.
For the second Leah, we call Kagan and Piper Lusky, Nathan's uncle and aunt. The reader is his grandmother, Barbara Goldfield. We're now on page 438, verses 7 through 9.
Baruch Adonai HaBarach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torah. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen.
ויבוא משה ויקרא לזקני העם וישם לפניהם את כל הדברים האלה אשר ציווהו אדוני ויענו כל העם יחדיו ויאמרו כל אשר דיבר אדוני נעשה ויאמר אדוני וישב משה את דברי העם אל אדוני ויאמר אדוני אל משה הנה אנוכי בא אליך באב הענן בעבור ישמע העם ודברי עמך וגם בך יאמינו לעולם ויגיד משה את דברי העם אל אדוני.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam notav b'tokenu baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yom Tuesday.
For the third Aliyah, Nathan's grandparents, Jack and Marcy Goldfield. The readers are Beth Yeshua and Balkore, Rabbi Danny Horwitz. We're now on page 438, verses 10 through 13.
We're going to read now a scene that's going to be terrifying, right? The earth is trembling violently. There's thunder, there's lightning, blaring horns. People are shaking, there's clouds. It's really a terrifying scene. And if you wonder how the people reacted to it, we don't really know until after the 10 Commandments are given. So at the end of the reading of the commandments, one of the last aliyot, they're going to say the people were terrified. They were afraid for their lives. They said to Moses, why don't you go up to the mountain and listen to God's commandments and come back and tell us what he says, because we can't handle this. If we stay here any longer, we'll die of fright. The rabbis interpreted, though, that scene actually happened after the second commandment. So pay attention when we read the 10 Commandments and see if you can figure out why the rabbis thought something changed between the second and third commandments.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim v'nosan lanu es torso. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayomer Adonai el Moshe lech elam b'kidashtem hayom u'machar v'chibsu simlotam v'yunachonim l'yom hashlishi ki vayom hashlishi yered Adonai l'nei cholam al har Sinai v'igbat Adam saviv le'mor Ishamru lachem alot bar and b'katzehu konogei bahar mod yumat Otigava yad Yisak kol Yisak elo yaroya yadre Im be'maimish lo yichye Bim shocha yavel heima yaluvahar
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu asher norsan lanu tomas emes v'chayei olam notav b'sochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ya'amdu Revi.
For the fourth Aliyah, grandmothers Lorraine Lusky and Barbara Goldfield. We're on page 439, verses 14 through 19.
Baruch Adonai Hamborach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayeled Moshe min har elam vayakadesh etam vayichabzu simlotam vayomer elam heyunachonim lishloshet yamim al tigshu el isha vayehi vayom hashlishi biyot haboker vayehi kolotu frakim vanan kaved al har v'kol shofar chazak mahod v'yecharad kol ha'am asher b'machaneh Vayotzei Moshe etam likrat Elohim min ha'machaneh v'yatzvu b'tachtit ha'har v'har Sinai ashan kulo mibnei asher yarad alav Adonai ba'esh v'yala shenokesh enakivshan v'yecharad kol ha'har mahod v'yehi kol ha'shofar olech v'kazek mahod Moshe yedaber v'ha'elohim yanenu v'kol.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'hayei olam nata b'tochenu, Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
We take a short pause right in the middle of a very epic Torah reading to say a Sheberach for the Cholim, a prayer for those who are in need of healing. So if there's anybody you can think of in your life, Jewish or not Jewish, they have a Hebrew name, English name, God knows all the languages, who's in need of healing at this time, whether that's a healing of their body or a healing of their mind, their soul, their spirit, everybody knows somebody who needs healing right now. So I'm going to say the prayer in Hebrew, I'm going to say the list of names that I have in front of me, and then I'm going to pause. And whether you're here in person or you're watching on our live stream, I want you to say those names that you're thinking of, the people you're holding in your heart. You can say those names out loud or in your heart. I will say, Sheberach Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sar Rivka Rachel V'Yivrecher Be'et Kol HaCholim Ha'ele Akiva ben Yulian ve'Esther, Akiva, Aliza bat Rivka, Anat bar Kohen bat Brindel ve'Yakov, Ar Yehuda ben Ordaya, Avraham Fischel ben Zahava Brina ben Zion, Avraham Yitzchak ben Chaim, Daniel bat Bela ve'Yosef, Dar bat Avraham ve'Sarah, Davida Rivka bat Dina, Elazar ben Ramon ve'Mimi HaKohen, Eliyahu Ariel ben Yafa, Getaleah bat Devorah Ruth, Harav Zivi Echana bat Sarah, Ruyach Mel Yosef, Ilana bat Gita, Menachem ben Miriam, Miriam bat Rachel, Miriam Esther bat Rezel, Moshe ben Yaakov HaLevi, Penina bat Sarah, Paya Rivka bat Ruvain Levi, Vepisa Hita Rachel bat Sarah, Reza bat Yichka, Ruth Chayda bat Esther, Shmuel ben Rita, Yehudit bat Gus, Yonatan ben Eleanor, Rodney Blake, Bradley Borden, Hal Borland, Ryan Bowers, Miriam Braun, Michael Brown, Nova Chapuis, Vicky Cornejo, Marla Davidoff, John Fywell, Harvey J. Freiberg, Nellie Ora Garson, Michelle Greenberg, Linda Hershkovitz, Julius Hochstein, Shelia Jackson, Howard Kammerman, Melissa Kelly, Rachel Ann Kenter, Chris King, Margie Kasoy, Jimmy Lass, Alan Malowitz, Aubrey McCreary, Tyler Miller, Vicky Mitrani, Joel Myers, Ann Weiss Nunes, Marcia Papert, Trey Fiba, Leslie Rothwig, Lisa Rome, Steve Davis Rosenbaum, Marvin Rosenberg, Julia Scheinthal, Earl Schneider, Diane, and Richard Shapiro, Ark Shapiro, Joe Schoss, Fran Spector, Randy Tavares, Mike Fine, David Weiss. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Becca, Rachel, and Leah bring blessing and healing to all in our congregational family who are in need of healing at this time. Bring them a refuah shlema, a complete healing of their body, mind, soul, and spirit. Bring strength, God, and wisdom to their doctors and nurses and caregivers, because when they know what they're doing, the ones we love feel better sooner. Bring strength, love, and God to those who love those who are in need of healing, because when we feel your light, it shines through us and onto them and warms them from the inside. Give them the blessings you give all of your children, and let us all say, Amen.
For the fifth Aliyah, we call Nathan's brother and sister, Sophie and Eddie Kelman. The readers are our guest cantor, Rachel Goldman. We're in chapter 19, verse 20 through chapter 20, verse 13. On page 440, I will sing to you when you rise for the Ten Commandments.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayered Adonai ar har Sinai el rosh hahar vayikra Adonai leMoshe el rosh hahar vayam Moshe Vayomer Adonai el Moshe red ha'ed ba'am pen yifrotz ha'am. Can you put your hand there? Pen yirtzu el Adonai lerot v'nafal mimenu rav v'gam ha'kohanim hanigashim el Adonai yitkadashu pen yifrotz b'hem Adonai Vayomer Moshe Adonai lo yuchal ha'am la'alot al har Sinai ki ata haidot habanu lemor hagbel et ha'har v'hirashto vayomer elav Adonai lechred ve'alita ata im אהרון עמך, והכהנים העם. אל יחרצו לעלות אל אדוני, פן יפרוץ בם, וירד משה אל העם, ויאמר עליהם, וידבר אלוהים את כל הדברים האלה לאמור. אנוכי אדוני אלוהיך, אשר הוצאתיך מארץ מצרים, מבית עבדים. לא יהיה לך אלוהים אחרים על פניי, לא תעשה לך פסל וכל תמונה אשר בשמיים ממעל, ואשר בארץ מתחת, ואשר במים מתחת לארץ. לא תשתחווה לכם ולא תעבדם, כי אנוכי אדוני אלוהיך אלקנה, פוקד עוון אבות על בנים, על שילשים ועל רבעים לשונאי, ועושה חסד לאלפים, לאהובי ולשומרי מצוותי. לא תישא את שם אדוני אלוהיך לשווא, כי לא ינקה אדוני את אשר יישא את שמו לשווא. זכור את יום השבת לקודשו, 6 ימים תעבוד ועשית כל מלאכתך, ויום השביעי שבת לאדוני אלוהיך. לא תעשה כל מלאכה, אתה ובנך וביתך, עבדך ואמתך ובהמתך, בגרך אשר בשעריך, כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, את הים ואת כל אשר בם, וינוח ביום השביעי. על כן ברך אדוני את יום השביעי ויקדשהו, את יום השבת ויקדשהו. כבד את אביך ואת אמך, למען יאריכון ימיך על האדמה אשר אדוני אלוהיך נותן לך. לא תרצח, לא תנאף, לא תגנב, לא תענה ברעך עת שקר, לא תחמוד בית רעך, לא תחמוד אשת רעך, ועבדו ואמתו ושורו וחמורו וכל אשר לרעך.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torat emet, v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
You may be seated. Every synagogue has a depiction of the 10 Commandments, usually right around the ark. The reason, of course, for that is that the synagogue represents the temple for us. The ark represents the original golden box, the Ark of the Covenant, that housed the 10 Commandments. And so in every synagogue, we have a representation of the ark where we keep our Torahs, and the 10 Commandments. And of course, on our synagogue here, it's on the pink walls here on either side of the ark where the Torah scrolls are kept. We count the 10 Commandments differently than the way Catholics and Protestants do. We count the opening statement, I am the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt, as a commandment to believe in one God. Most people say that's the preamble. We say it's a commandment. And then we combine what the Protestants say are 2 different commandments. You will have no other gods, and you will not make graven images. And that is the 2nd commandment up there. So for those of you who are paying close attention, you probably noticed that the commandments changed from first person to 3rd person. God's commanding in the opening commandments, I am the Lord your God. You will have no other gods besides me. You will not make any graven images because I am a jealous God. And then suddenly it changes to the 3rd person, right? Do not take God's name in vain. It doesn't say don't take my name in vain. Why did it change to the 3rd person? The rabbis say that's the point at which the people turned to Moses and said, we are terrified. We can't stand here anymore and listen to God's words. You go up the mountain and find out what he says and bring it back down and tell us. And so the 3rd commandment on is when Moses came back down the mountain and told them the rest of the commandments. That's why he changed to third person.
Yamdu Shishi.
For the sixth Aliyah, we call Nathan's very proud parents, Amy and Mary Kalman. We're now reading on page 448, verses 14 through 17.
Baruch Adonai Ambarach Li'olam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bar rabanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. V'chol ha'am roim et ha'kolot v'yed ha'lapidim v'yed kol ha'shofar v'yed ha'ashen v'yar ha'am v'yanu v'yamdu meid rachok v'yomeru el Moshe daber ata imanu v'nishma v'yedaber imanu Elohim ben Namud v'yomer Moshe el ha'am al tirau ki v'avur nasot etchem ba Elohim uva'avur tiyah yiratahu al pnechem levilti techatahu v'yamod ha'merachok u'Moshe nigash el ha'rafel asher sham ha'Elohim.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah temet v'hayei olam natan b'toheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Ready? And now, with great pride and joy, we call on our bar mitzvah Nathan to come to the Torah. Ya'amod habachur habar mitzvah Zalman ben Moshe ve'ahava shevi chazak alei lekabel et orah haTorah.
Nathan's reading, we're on page 449, verses 19 through 21.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorah.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bar harbanu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Vayamod ha'am merahok u'Moshe nigash el harafel asher sham ha'Elohim vayomer Adonai el Moshe kotomar el bnei Yisrael atem reitem ki min hashamayim diberti imahem lo tasu iti Elohei Hesef v'Elohei Zahav lo tasu lahem. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'hayei olam natan betoheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
David. We rise for Chatzi Kaddish.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה. ועמדתי ברכירותי וימליך מלכותי בחיי כל וביום אחד ובחיי כל בית ישראל בעגלה בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם עולם מהוויה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתהלל ויתהלל שמי דקודש הבריחו לילה מן כה בחטא ושירתה תוש בחטא ונחם למטה תמירם בעלמה ויאמרו אמן.
Please be seated.
Yamod Maftir.
For the Mafta reading, we call upon Uncle Richard Rohan. The reading's on page 449, verses 21 through 23. Lift the Torah family friends, Mark and Allie Katz, please rise.
אותה תורה ששם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. תורה, 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 תורה ציווה לנו משה. תורה, 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 תורה ציווה לנו משה. תורה, 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 תורה ציווה לנו משה. תורה, 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 תורה ציווה לנו משה.
What a proud day it is for Amy and Murray to see Nathan become a bar mitzvah, a son of our commandments, and becoming a full-fledged adult member of our community. And so we stand with them as they are at the open ark and with their son Nathan, and they recite their parents' prayer.
Dear God, thank you for giving us all the patience and strength to stay focused and committed to getting to this day. Although the pandemic took a severe toll on our collective well-being, we found that we were able to find so many silver linings in this experience. We were given a unique opportunity to spend quality time as a family, an increased sense of appreciation for what we have, and a greater sense of clarity about what matters most in our life. We have been more mindful and focused on what can be controlled, strong relationships with family and friends, and more importantly, feeling gratitude. I am so incredibly grateful to be here celebrating this wonderful mitzvah with Nathan. He is truly a reminder of the quote, "There really are places in the heart you don't even know exist until you love a child." God, I pray that you watch over him, keep him safe, keep him healthy, and help him choose right from wrong. I pray that he is happy and surrounded by friends. I pray that you give him the strength to face challenges with confidence and choose his battles wisely. God, please help him continue to be adventurous in the understanding that the best lessons in life are in his failures. I ask that you help him stay humble, patient, and kind, and that he never takes for granted the opportunities and privileges that he has. and that he always shows gratitude and appreciation for them. I pray that he knows he is safe, loved, and protected, and that I am here for him no matter what. God, please don't ever let him forget that he is valuable and matters, and more than anything, how much I love him. May he continue to keep me young and never stop making me laugh. Amen.
Dear God, as I look down at my son, yes, I'm still taller than he is, I want to give thanks for this precious gift that is Nathan Henry that came into my life 13 short years ago. May Nathan continue to be a sweet, kind, and generous person as he matures from a child to a young man and sets out on a path of his own. I pray that you continue to give him the passion and courage to chase all his dreams in life. Please give him the strength to tackle adversity when things don't go his way and the wisdom to overcome life's challenges. It's my sincere hope that he can be blessed, like Amy and I, to find a wonderful partner in life to share God's greatest creation, children of his own. God, please give Nathan the same enjoyment and opportunities with his kids to share a dugout, field, or court, and long car rides home after tough games that have been a memory of a lifetime for me. May Nathan's days always be filled with laughter, love, and learning, and be surrounded by wonderful friends and family that will support him and make him happy. Let his thirst for knowledge and passion in sports and competition continue to drive him to succeed in the game of life. Thank you, God, for giving Nathan a strong sense of Jewish identity, and may his Judaism always be a meaningful part of his life. It's my strongest hope that Nathan has the privilege to stand where I stand today and witness his own child become a bar or bat mitzvah, so that he can feel the enormous amount of pride and joy from his own child that I feel for him today. Watch over him as he continues to embrace the legacy of the amazing people he was named for. May their spirit of kindness and love of family always be a cornerstone and pillar of how he lives his life. Amen.
And now, Lador Vador, from generation to generation, the Torah is passed to Nathan, from his grandparents to his parents, and finally to him. And you all may be seated. Becoming a bar mitzvah is not just you turn 13, great, but now it is your chance to enter into our Jewish community as an adult. And that means it's your turn, your opportunity, your privilege to look at our Torah and our texts and our traditions and say, what in here is meaningful to me? What in here is resonant to me? And what do I find to be so important that I need to share it as an adult with you? Because of that, we are so excited to learn from Nathan, our newest Jewish man in our community, and to hear his bar mitzvah, Dvar Torah.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you to those who are here in person today and those who are watching virtually. With so much uncertainty, more than anything, I'm grateful just to be up here today. It's been tricky trying to plan and prepare with all these challenges we have faced in these last 2 years and more recently these last 2 months. It's been crazy. But honestly, I believe that my bar mitzvah is happening this weekend because I've been so flexible and open to listening and learning from others to get to this point, similar to Moses in this week's Parsha Yitro. After leading the Israelites out of Egypt, Moses had a lot of respect and responsibility. As the leader, he was having to deal with every single problem experienced by each Israelite. He was literally settling every dispute and making known the laws of God. Trying to handle this job alone wore him out and overwhelmed him. Yitro, Moses' father-in-law, who was not Jewish, was impressed by all the challenges and things he had learned from Moses when he came to meet him. Yitro was also no stranger to leadership, as he was a priest of the Midianites. He said, "What you are doing is not good. You and these people who come to you will only wear yourselves out. The work is too heavy for you. You cannot handle it alone." He suggested Moses delegate his responsibilities, and he told him to find capable people to handle the smaller day-to-day problems and bring the bigger ones to him, so that Moses no longer had to be so overloaded. Moses listened to Yitro, and by doing this, everyone benefited. Moses taught people to organize themselves so that there would be support and leadership for thousands of years to come. These two men, each a leader of their own nation, collide in this story. However, in the end, they were both open-minded and ultimately learned from each other. You could even say this part of the Parsha was a series of teachable moments. Speaking of teachable moments, as many of you know, I'm a huge sports fan, not only competing but watching as well. So you can imagine my surprise when I heard the story about former Miami Heat NBA player Myers Leonard when he used an anti-Semitic slur on a live stream when he played a video game. I was confused. Is this what gamers say? I hated the way it made me feel. So did the now retired Super Bowl MVP New England Patriot wide receiver Julian Edelman. Edelman, who is Jewish, rather than dismissing or publicly criticizing Leonard, instead reached out and offered to educate him about anti-Semitism and even invited him to a Shabbat dinner. He didn't rush to judgment and gave him a chance to explain. He offered a solution. Edelman's words did not seem to fall on deaf ears. Leonard, after posting a public apology on Instagram, contacted multiple Jewish organizations to begin this healing process. He immersed himself in the Jewish community and had a real and honest conversation, after which he committed to be an ally of the Jewish community. He said, "Having the ability to learn about one another is not a form of punishment, it's a gift. Our differences aren't what divide us apart, it's our lack of knowledge that does." He goes on to say his future actions will be louder than this one incident. As I took from the Parsha about Yitro and Moses, I think the same could be said about these two men, each of them a successful leader and well-known in their own way of professional sports and very different experiences and views. But in the end, they're both open-minded and ultimately learn from each other. I can relate to this personally through my experiences on my baseball team, where most of my teammates are not Jewish. As one of the few Jewish players on the team that have become a B'nai Mitzvah, there have been several times when a non-Jewish player has asked me about what is going on during the service or something about the prayers or synagogue. I have happily explained as best I could so that my friends could better understand more about me and the way my family celebrates our Jewish holidays and traditions. At the same time, they have educated me on some of their similarities and differences on their traditions and what they do at church or home to celebrate their milestones and holidays. Taking advantage of these teachable moments has been a great way to better understand and get closer to my teammates. I urge you, whether Jewish or not, to see yourself as a role model with those that have different backgrounds from you. While it may be hard to find common ground, sometimes our world and community is better and stronger when we bring our strengths to the table, like Moses and Yitro and Edelman and Leonard. There were many people who helped me get to the point I am at today. I'd first like to thank Rabbi Fort, Rabbi Strauss, and Kenner Finkelstein. I'd also like to thank Kenner Dorf and Fred Wadler for helping me learn all the prayers and Torah portions. I could not have done this without y'all's help. Papa, although I never got to meet you, I love hearing the stories about what a great athlete you are, and I know you're looking down on me when I play. It is also special to be named for my dad's grandfather, Nathan Siegel. It always makes me happy to see his name and know that I was named for such a special man. Gaga, you are always there to love and support me. Thank you for always sitting through my games, taking me to lunch or dinner. You are so funny. We have the best times just hanging out, laughing, and doing nothing. Granny, you are my biggest fan. You are at every game. I love going on all our special trips. I love going on all our special shopping sprees. I know you will always be there for me for whatever I need. Pa and Marcy, it's always fun when you visit and when I go to visit you. Thank you for coming down here to be with me on this special day. I really appreciate it. Dear Sophie, even though we are not always getting along, I still know if I need help with anything or need an Uber Eats driver, you will be there for me. I will really miss you next year when you go to college. I'd like to thank my weaker brother, Eddie. Even when I was younger, you have always let me hang out with the big boys, and you and your friends make me feel like I'm one of the big boys. I love knowing I will always have a best friend for life, even though I hit the baseball further than you. Dad, I have always been your assistant coach. You know how much I love the game of baseball, and it is because of you. Your enthusiasm and support for me is amazing, has inspired me to be the best I can. Without you, I would not be nearly the same player. Thank you for taking me to the field whenever I ask. I also like to beat you in basketball, and remember, I'm only getting taller. But even outside of athletics, you do everything I ask. You help me with homework and so much more. I love spending time with you, and I've learned so much from you, and I hope to continue to keep learning. Thanks for being the best dad ever. Mom, just like you, I'm the baby of the family. No matter how old I get, you always treat me like I'm the baby of the family. I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you do for me. I love seeing you at my games, going to lunch with you, and looking at dog videos. I feel like we have a special connection that not many people have. I treasure our time together. I love having the best mom in the world. Thank you for being there. I love you. Thank you all for being here on this special day. Shabbat Shalom.
You can clap. Yasha Koach Nathan on a wonderful lesson about leadership, whether you're Jewish or not Jewish, ancient or modern. It's so applicable. So thank you so much for teaching all of us. We do ask a lot of our B'nai and B'not Mitzvah here at Beth Yeshurun, but in fairness, they do a fantastic job. They read Torah, they give a Dvar Torah, and they also read Haftarah. So every single week, not only do we read from the Torah scroll itself, but we have a passage from the prophets that is added on and is somewhat or somehow related. This week we are reading in the book of Isaiah. And in the Torah, we see this beautiful line of God. God says, you all will be a nation, a holy nation to me, God says, you Israelites. You will be a whole nation of priests, which sounds wonderful and is certainly a lofty goal. And in Isaiah, we see that it is not exactly panning out, which could be a downer. However, I think Isaiah sets us up to look at this as maybe sometimes we fall a little short of the mark. And as Jews, we do have a rather high mark held for us. However, that doesn't mean we'll never hit it. It means we have something to aspire to. We are supposed to aspire to greatness, and that's never a bad thing. Now, originally, Nathan had a bar mitzvah partner, and he would be splitting the Haftarah reading with his partner. Now, things being what they are these days, that partner is not here today. However, he has an extra special opportunity, I would say, to be splitting the Haftarah for his bar mitzvah with his uncle, Richard Rohan, and what a wonderful delight it's going to be to share the bima with your uncle. So I think that's kind of nice. We'll be reading in the book of Isaiah, chapter 6, verse 1. That's page 452 in your really big red book in the Eitz Chaim Chumash.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bahar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratzav v'divrehem hanemarim be'emet Baruch atah Adonai haboher b'Torah u'Moshe avdo v'Yisrael amo u'v'nvi'ei hamet v'tzedek.
Amen.
Bishnat Mot HaMelech Uziyahu Vayre Et Adonai Yoshev Al Kiseh Ram Venisa Veshulav Melaim Et HaHechal Seraphim Omdim Mima'al Lo Sheish Kenafayim Sheish Kenafayim Lehad Bishtaim Yehaseh Fanahav Uvishtaim Yehaseh Raglav Uvishtaim Yelfeif Vekarazeh Elzeh Ve'amar Kadosh Kadosh Adonai Tsevaot Meloch Haaretz Kevodo Vayanu Amot Hasipim Mikol HaKorei Ve'Habayit Yimalei Ashan Va'omar Oili Hinin Meiti Ki Steme Sefatayim Anohi Livto Amteme Sefatime Anohi Yoshev Ki Etamele Adonai Sevaot Rauenai Vayaf Elai Ehad Min HaSerafim Uvyado Ritpa Bemel Kahaim Laka Me'al HaMizbeah.
Vayagal pi vayomer hinei nagazel sefasecha pesor avonecha v'chatascha techupar vashma eskol Adonai omer esmi eshlach umi elech lanu va'omar hineni shalacheni vayomer lech va'amarta lam hazeh shimu shamoa v'al tavinu Ura of Altedau, Hashmein Lefam Hazev, Aznav Hachbe, Venav Hasha, Venyer Evenav, Uvaznav Ishma, Ulvavo Yavin, Vashav, Verafalo, Vaomar, Admasai, Adonai, Vayomer Ad Asher. Im sha'u arim, mein yoshev, uvatim, mein adam, v'adama tisha eshmama, v'richak Adonai es ha'adam, v'rava zuva b'kerev haaretz, v'od v'asiria v'shava v'haisala v'er, kaila v'chalon, Asher b'shalech es matzev es bam, zera kodesh matzav tov. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik b'chol hadoros, ha'ne'eman ha'omer v'yoseh, ha'medaber u'mkayim, shekol dvarav emes v'tzedek. Ne'eman atahu Adonai Eloheinu v'ne'emanim dvarecha, v'davar echad midvarecha, achor le'yeshuv rekam, ki al melech ne'eman, b'rachaman atah, baruch atah Adonai, ha'el ha'ne'eman b'chol dvarav. Rachem al Tzion, ki beis chayenu, v'la luvas nefesh, toshia b'meira b'yameinu, baruch atah Adonai, v'sameach Tzion b'vaneha. Samcheinu Adonai Eloheinu ve'eliyahu hanavi avdecha u'malchus beis David Meshichecha b'meira yavo v'yagel libeinu al kiso lo yeshev zar v'lo yichal od acherim es kevodo ki b'shem kodshecha nishbata lo shelo yichve ne'era li'olam va'ed baruch atah Adonai Magen David. Amen.
Al HaTorah, ve'al ha'avodah, ve'al hanvim, v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu, Adonai Eloheinu, likdusha ve'limnuha, lehavod ol tifaret, al hakol, Adonai Eloheinu, anachnu modim la, umvarhim ota, it barashim ha'befi kol hai, Tamid le'olam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. Throw the candies if you have any. Simen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simen tov, simen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simen tov, simen tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, simen tov, yehelanu, 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 ol lechol Yisrael, yehelanu, yehelanu, ol lechol Yisrael.
So Mazel Tov again to Nathan. And we want to invite all the children to come up. We got plenty of candy right up here. So all of our kids, come on up. We got plenty of candy for you to come take. Yeah, stay. And as the kids collect the candy, we have a lot to thank God for. And we do that as Jews by expressing a bracha, a blessing. And surrounded by Nathan and his family, we ask God to continue moments such as this with words of thanks, words of Shechianu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Blessed you, Lord our God, King Universe, who's kept us in life, sustained us, and allowed us to reach this very special day. And let us all say, Amen. And now it's my pleasure to call upon our Congregational President, David Stein, to lead us in a prayer for the United States and Israel.
Almighty God on high, omnipotent King, look down from your heavenly abode and bless the United States of America. May our leaders strive to establish justice and opportunity for all, and may they be successful in bringing peace to the family of nations. May your favor rest upon our beloved state of Israel, its land and all those who dwell therein. Protect Israel from war and hatred, and may our Jewish state bring comfort to those who seek refuge, light to those who dwell in darkness, and new hope to all humanity. We ask your blessings upon the valiant servicemen and women of the American military forces and the Israel Defense Forces, who risk their lives to protect the welfare of all your creation. Be their shelter and fortress, and do not allow them to falter. Fill their hearts with faith and courage. Protect them on land, in the air, and on the sea. Guide them in peace, lead them towards peace, and return them speedily to their families, alive and unharmed, and let us all together say, Amen.
Amen. And now let us turn to page 178, back in our prayer books, as Kenner Goldman offers a prayer for Israel. Avida Shabbat Shemayim.
Strengthen the hands of those who would defend our holy land. Avinu Shebashamayim, deliver them and crown their
now we continue in our service to the next page. It's an honor to call upon next week's bat mitzvah, Abby Robinson, who will lead us in the Ashrei, page 181.
Ashrei yoshvei ve'taha, od yehalalucha selah.
Ashrei am Adonai Eloha.
Tehillah leDavid, aromimcha Elohai hamelech, v'rvacham shimcha le'olam va'ed.
B'chol yom avarcheka, v'ala shimcha le'olam va'ed.
Gadol Adonai umhlal me'od, ve'lig dulato ein cheker.
Dor dor shabach ma'asecha, gvurotecha yagidu.
Hadar kevod hodecha, v'divrei niflotecha asicha.
V'ziz norotecha yomeru, gdulatcha saprena.
Zecher of tuvcha yabiu, v'sidkatecha yiranenu.
Chanun v'rachum Adonai, erech hapayim ugdol chased.
Tov Adonai lakol, v'rachamav al kol ma'asav.
Yoducha Adonai kol ma'asecha, v'chasidecha yevarchucha.
Kevod malchutcha yomeru, v'urata yedaberu.
להודיע לבני אדם גבורותיו וכבוד הדר מלכותו.
Malchutcha malchut kol olamim, u'memshaltecha bechol dor vador.
סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים וזוקף לכל הכפופים.
Einei chol elecha yesaberu, ve'ata noten lehem et ochlam be'ito.
פותח את ידיך ומשביע לכל חי רצון.
Tzadik Adonai bechol derachav, ve'chasid bechol ma'asav.
קרוב אדוני לכל קוראיו לכל אשר יקראו באמת.
Ritzon yirei av yaseh, ve'et shavatam yishma ve'yoshiem.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו ואת כל הרשעים ישמיד.
Tehilat Adonai yadar be'erpi, vivarech kol ba'asar shem kodsho le'olam va'ed. V'anachnu nevarech ya, me'ata ve'ad olam. Hallelujah.
Please rise.
יעללו את שם אדוני, כי נשגב שמו לבדו. כבודו על ארץ ושמיים, וירם קרן לעמו. תהילה לכל חסידיו, תהילה לכל חסידיו, לבני ישראל, עם קרובו. Ankerovo, hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Ose shalom bihimromav, ulyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Imru, Amen. Ose shalom imromav, ulyase shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Ve'imru, Amen. Yase shalom, Yase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, Yase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, Yase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, Yase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yase shalom, Yase shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Hevenu shalom aleichem, hevenu shalom aleichem, hevenu Evenu shalom, shalom, shalom aleichem. Evenu shalom aleichem. Evenu shalom aleichem. Evenu shalom aleichem. Evenu shalom, shalom, shalom aleichem. Ashivenu Adonai Eilecha v'nashuva Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu
Good Shabbos, everyone. You may be seated. Good Shabbos again, everyone. My friends, 2 days ago was the 80th anniversary of the Wannsee Conference. And what was that conference? It was 80 years ago, on January 20th, 1942, when 15 high-ranking German government officials gathered at a villa in the Berlin suburb of Wannsee to discuss and coordinate the implementation of what they called the final solution of the Jewish question. The aim of the conference was clear. It was to coordinate the physical destruction of as many Jews in Europe as possible. It was the most anti-Semitic conference in the history of the world. And unfortunately, as we all know, 80 years later, anti-Semitism is still a threat. In October, someone tried to burn down Congregation Beth Israel in Austin. Anti-Semitic flyers related to the pandemic have been found throughout the country in places as close as Austin and Missouri City. Flyers that say that we as Jews invented the vaccines to euthanize the world, that we as Jews are actually not getting the vaccine. It's funny because I think we Jews were the first to line up to get the vaccine. And of course, the hostage taking at Congregation Beth Israel in Colleyville this past Shabbat should concern all of us. There are real, genuine cases of anti-Semitism that deserve our attention. They should concern all of us. But I have another concern when it comes to anti-Semitism today. How this world in 2022, and the anti-Semitism we see throughout the United States and even here in Texas, affects our children. And whether they are young children or teenagers or going off to college, I'm concerned. I grew up in another small town north of Dallas, Richardson. And at the time, in the 70s and 80s, it had a very small Jewish community. In like Colleyville, I was surrounded by many non-Jews. In fact, this Jewish community in my small town north of Dallas was so small, my synagogue didn't have the funds or the ability to have our own building. We would have our services in a Lutheran church. And I can't tell you how kind and welcoming those church members were. They would do whatever they could to make us feel welcome, bending over backwards to allow us to do services and programs and religious school. I'll never forget, as a child, I'd come to services on Friday nights and Saturday morning. There'd be a big curtain on the bima, and we would sneak behind the curtain, and there we would see a large cross. We were welcomed in that church, and the church would do what they could. They'd even cover up their crosses, do whatever they could to provide for that small Jewish community that my family was a part of. And that had an effect on me. I saw that my non-Jewish neighbors respected my faith. There was never a time as a young Jew that I was worried or scared. In fact, I often felt it was cool to be Jewish. Look how kind and respectful and welcoming my non-Jewish friends and neighbors are. The world has changed in many ways since I was a child. Our young people today see a different world, but they don't see a world the way which people my age see the world. They see the world differently because of social media and their cell phones. And our young people, like many of us, no matter our age, are constantly bombarded by anti-Semitic messages, and all the more so our young. I can't tell you how many times my 3 teenage children have come to me and said, "Dad, why is Israel so hated?" And I asked them, "Why do you say that?" Because they're constantly bombarded with messages on Instagram and Snapchat where they see anti-Israel messages constantly on their feeds. Our children are growing up in a world where they are constantly bombarded by the extremes. They see the extreme left that says we as American Jews are part of white privilege, and that Israel is a colonizer state, constantly persecuting the Palestinians. And they're also bombarded by messages on the extreme right that says that we as Jews control the world. Crazy theories that say that we as Jews control business and entertainment, industry and media. They see the extremes. And I feel that those extremes that they see, and then they're bombarded with what happened this past Shabbat, I'm concerned. Because I don't think the world is as anti-Semitic as these messages make it seem like it is. I still believe, and maybe I'm naive, but I still believe that there's a lot more respect and appreciation for us as Jews. No matter what the extremes may say, I still believe an overwhelming majority of Americans love us, respect us, or quite honestly, just don't think that much about us. Whether it's in a small town in North Texas or here in Houston or anywhere in the United States, even with the current rise in anti-Semitism, I still believe we are very safe as American Jews. At the beginning of our Torah portion this morning, the great Yitro, a non-Jew, a priest of another nation, appears all of a sudden in our Torah portion. He's a trusted and close friend of Moses and of the people, and he counsels and advises Moses. The Torah portion is named after him, one of the most important Torah portions in the entire year in which we read the 10 Commandments, named for a non-Jew. And his appearance comes immediately after the end of last week's Torah portion, the appearance of Amalek. Amalek was the complete opposite of Yitro. He led a non-Jewish nation that sought to destroy us, an evil people who attacked our most weakest. And the rabbis always say there's a reason why the Torah is written the way it is. Like the commentary Ibn Ezra reminds us, the Torah records a great friend of the Jewish people, Yitro, right after a great enemy of the Jewish people, Amalek, to assure us that not all non-Jews are wicked enemies of Israel. In fact, although there are Amaleks, there are many more Yitros, many more people who loved us then, who've always loved us, and continue to love us now. That's always been the case, and I still think it is the case. And believe it or not, today not only are we well liked, we may be more popular than any religious group. Recently, the Pew Research Center released another wide-ranging survey about the state of religion in America. And they discovered something amazing again. They've been doing this survey every few years since 2014. And if you didn't hear what they said, I promise I'm not making this up. They found that we as Jews are the most warmly regarded religious group in America. Respondents ranked various religious groups on what they titled a feeling thermometer. And Jews were ranked higher than any other religious group in the United States. The authors of the survey noted that warm feelings towards Jews even rose despite the contentious times we live in. And it's not just the Pew survey. Countless surveys continue to show that Americans of all walks of life value our culture of family values, our integration of ritual, and our sense of upward mobility despite earlier discrimination. We see in the old days, Jewish priorities and lifestyles stood outside the mainstream. But in today's education-based economy, we're often respected, even admired. Because the reality is, the truth is, after centuries of being outcasts, we continue to be invited in. And not just welcomed, but embraced by an overwhelming majority of Americans, perhaps with more regard than any other religious group in the United States. The reality is, we're still more popular and well-respected by our non-Jewish neighbors than at any point in Jewish history. Do our children know? Yes, we need strong enforcement of our hate crime laws. We should require our institutions, our schools, our synagogues to have robust security. We must have careful monitoring of anti-Semitism in all its forms. Yes, there are dangers out there. But the good news is we can fight that anti-Semitism with the extremes of the nutcases out there. We can fight them with millions of non-Jewish neighbors and friends who want to join us in that fight. From both sides of the political spectrum, Democrats and Republicans, from all areas of the country, and from all different sectors of our society. For our children's sake, to ensure their desire to play an active role in our Jewish future, let's continue to emphasize to them, let's remind them, because they need the constant reminder. Let's remind them just how good we really do have it in this great country that we call home. I don't ever want any Jewish children, not one Jewish child, to give up on their Judaism because they're worried that we are hated. Then we lose. We let the anti-Semites win. They need that reinforcement from their parents and their grandparents, from their rabbis and teachers, from their synagogues and Jewish camps and Jewish day schools. That yes, there are anti-Semites out there, but it is still very safe to be a Jew. We can't afford to lose any of our children. And I don't ever want our children to define their Judaism by those who hate us. Because those who do hate us on the extremes will try to define us by their own perverse views of what we as Jews stand for. They don't define us. We define us. We define ourselves by the values that we as a Jewish people have always stood with, that have guided us through centuries in different cultures that have transcended generations. We define who Jews are. We define what the Israel state stands for. We define the good work that we as Jews are trying to do for this world as we have always done. Our children need to see us fighting for our definitions of what it really means to be an American Jew. Our children need to join us in that fight. We want them to join us. We want them to be proud Jews, defining themselves of what that means as an American Jew in 2022. Yes, as traumatic as this past Shabbat was, in some respects, Saturday evening was a good reminder that we are still safe. Think about it for just a moment. We live in a country where over 150 FBI agents flew out on a Saturday night to help rescue 4 Jewish hostages in a small town Texas synagogue, where millions across the country expressed their genuine prayers and concerns. Perhaps you've heard from some of them. I had clergy members of other faiths reach out to me all week. Now they all want to take me out for a nice lunch. I don't think our ancestors could have ever imagined just how good we really do have it. I was reminded that despite 2,000 years of anti-Semitism, we are still here, we are still growing, and we are still protected by many who love us. Love us for who we are. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Let us now rise as we prepare for the Musaf service, page 184.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה ואלמדי ברכרותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי כל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיה יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתגדל ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשו בריחו לילה מן כה בחטא ושירתה טול שמחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה ויאמרו אמן.
We join together in the opening of the Amidah.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו אלוהי אברהם אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב אלוהי שרה אלוהי רבקה אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא אל עליון גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ומביא גואל לבני בניכם למען שמו באחווה מלך עוזר ופוקד ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם מחלחל לחיים בחסד מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים צומח נופלים והופך חולים ומתיר אסורים ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר ברוך אתה אדוני מחייב
187.
נקדש את שמך בעולם, נעריצך ונקדישך, כסוד שיח שרפי קודש, יאללה המקדישים שמך בקודש, יאללה ככתוב על יד נביאך, יאללה וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ כבודו מלא עולם, משתף שואלים זה לזה, איה מקום כבודו, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו הוא יפן ברחמים, ויכון עם המייחדים שמו, ערב ובוקר בכל יום תמיד, 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 פעמיים מאהבה שמה אומרים, שמה ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, הוא מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו ברחמיו, שנית לעיני כל חי. להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ודברי קודשך כתוב לאמור, ימלוך אדוני לעולם, אלוהי ציון, לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. ושבחך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול, מלך גדול וקדוש אתה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך
Continue silently, pages 188 through 192. Please be seated as you conclude the Amidah. Turn to page 191 for a very special treat. Sim Shalom.
Sim Shalom. Tova uvracha ba'olam. Chain v'chesed v'rachamim
203, Kaddish Shalem.
יתגלה ויתגלה שמי רבה, בעלמתי ברקירותי, ומליך מלכותי, בחיי חון וימחון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה בזמן קריב וימרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם עולם מעלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתעדה ויתעלה ויתעלה, שמי דקודשה, בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דמירם ועלמה, ואמרו אמן. תתגבר צלות ההון ובאות ערכו ישראל, קדם אבון משמיה, ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו וערכו ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו וערכו ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
Turn to page 204 as Nathan leads us with his brother and sister in Ein Keloheinu.
Ein Keloheinu, Ein Kadonenu, Ein Kemalkeinu, Ein Kemoshienu, Mi Eloheinu, Mi Kadonenu, Mi Hemalkeinu, Mi Kemoshienu, No Del Eloheinu, No Del Adonenu, No Del Emalkeinu, No Del Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shekiru Avotenu, Lefaneha et Ketoret Hasamim.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate the lead. You guys should go on the road.
So Nathan, Mazel Tov. Mazel Tov on a beautiful job today. And in celebration of your Simcha, we're happy to present you some wonderful gifts, a beautiful tzedakah box from our Beth Yeshurun Sisterhood, a Kiddush cup from our 100 Jewish men, a gift certificate to one of our local kosher restaurants, a gift certificate to the Evelyn Rubenstein Jewish Community Center, a $100 State of Israel bond, courtesy of the AI and Minette Shep's Israel Bonding Fund, and of course, a certificate of Bar Mitzvah. So you'll always remember this day. And I love, Nathan, not only did you practice hard learning the prayers and preparing for your speech, but you also participated in some mitzvah projects, participating in the JCC Meals on Wheels food delivery program. And you also participated in a pet food drive. And you'll be giving 10% of your monetary gifts to the JCC Meals on Wheels, which is such a worthwhile organization. Nathan, it's been a pleasure seeing you become a bar mitzvah today. I've known you since the day you were born. I was there at your bris, and I've known your family for a very long time, and I've seen you grow up. And of course, we celebrated a few years ago at Sophie's bat mitzvah and Eddie's bar mitzvah, and now to see you all of a sudden shoot up and become this wonderful young man. What a pleasure it's been. And Nathan, since the time I've known you, you've always been a sweet, kind, and compassionate young man, inclusive, never wanting anyone to feel left out of anything, sensitive to other people's feelings. You have a genuine love of other people, being around others, especially your many friends and family. You're close with your parents, your grandparents, your older brother and sister. You're proud of all of them, and they're proud of you. And you're easygoing, laid back, a lot of fun to be around. You have a terrific sense of humor. Other people can kid around with you, and you have no problem giving it right back. And you're also a sharp young man. You have an ease about you that allows you to navigate any challenge that comes your way. And when you're not busy with school, you're passionate about playing tournament baseball, as well as baseball, basketball, and football for Emery Weiner. You're a terrific athlete. And while you handle yourself well with confidence, most importantly, you're humble about your abilities. You're not afraid to make a mistake. You're always pushing yourself to be better. Your parents have taught you well. You continue to want to learn, and you're curious and aware, acutely aware of everything around you. You ask good questions, and you're a leader on the field and court, and you hold your teammates accountable. You want your entire team to do well, always looking to help cheer up a teammate if a play doesn't go his way. Nathan, it's been a pleasure hearing how well you've done in sports, seeing you a few times play, and I know that so many of us in our community are proud of not just how good of an athlete you are, but more importantly, as I said, of just the person you are, the teammate that you are, to all those you've played with. And when you're not participating in a team sport, you like to work out or even squeeze in some golf. And as much as you love competing in organized sports, you have just as much fun going to a field with friends to play wiffle ball or some sandlot football. And you also enjoy collecting and trading sports cards and attending Astros and UT football games. Nathan, I recently asked you, what does this all mean to you to become a bar mitzvah? And you told me, Rabbi, it's about becoming a Jewish man. And by becoming a Jewish man, I feel even better about myself, who I am, that it's strengthened my identity as a proud Jew. Nathan, there's no doubt you've worked hard, you've committed, and it's shown. And how wonderful it is for your family. Your father, of course, growing up here at Beth Yeshurun in Houston. And, of course, your mom growing up in Lubbock. And I don't think she ever could have imagined what kind of synagogue her son would be part of one day. But here you are, continuing that Jewish legacy from your parents and their parents, and how proud your mother's father must be from above, smiling from above, that he has a grandson like you. And all those that are here today and all those who've gone before you, makes them so proud that you are proud to be a Jewish man. But being a Jewish man isn't about just learning the prayers and reading Torah, why that's important. It's also about being a mensch. It's about continuing those Jewish values. It's about continuing the Jewish wisdom that's kept our people alive for centuries. Nathan, you already have a good foundation. You've learned a lot. Your parents have worked hard to make sure that you've learned what it means to be a Jew. But now it's incumbent upon you to go out and learn even more, whether it's at school at Emery Weiner, or speaking with rabbis like myself, or reading Jewish books, whatever it may be. Now it's up to you, Nathan, to go out like those who've gone before you and learn and strengthen your Jewish identity even more. I look forward to seeing it happen, Nathan. Mazel tov on becoming a wonderful bar mitzvah. And now, before the open ark, the cantor and I have the pleasure of blessing Nathan, but the blessings of our people, the priestly blessings. Please rise. May Nathan always be a source of pride to his family, his community, and the entire house of Israel. May God always bless you and keep you. May God always show you his favor and be gracious to you. May God always show you kindness and give you the greatest blessing of all, that of shalom, that of peace always. And let us all say, Amen.
Page 205, we join Nathan in Aleinu.
Aleinu leshabei al adom hakol lateit gedula yelotzer bereshit selo asanu kegoye haratzot velo samanu kemishpahot hadamah shelo sam halkenu kahem vegor aleinu kehol amonam ve'anachnu korin Umi Mistahavim umodim Lifne Mele Malke HaMalkim HaKadosh Baruch Shehu Notesh Shamayim Veyoser Aretz Umoshev Yakaro Bashamayim Imal Ushinatuzo Begov He Meromim Hu Eloheinu Eino Emet Malkeinu Efezulato Kakatu Betorato Ve'adata Hayom Ve'hashavota Elevaveha Ki Adonai Hu HaElohim Bashamayim Mimal Ve'al Haaretz Mitahat Eno Ve'ne'emar Ve'haye Adonai Lemelech Kol Haaretz Bayom Hahu Yeh Adonai Echad Ushemo Echad.
And now we ask all those observing a yurtside and all those in mourning to remain standing for the words of the Mourner's Kaddish, page 207. Yitzgadal v'yikadash shemei Rabbi v'yalmad divrach yirutei v'yamlik malchutei b'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei dekol beit Yisrael ba'agalav v'zman kariv v'yimru amen Yehei shmei Rabbi mevorach leolam omei amaya Yitbarak v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei dekudusha brichu le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata Tishbechata v'nechemata damiram b'yama v'yamru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya v'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yamru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yamru amen. Just one announcement I wanted to share with you. Tickets are now available for our concert celebrating the incredible musical legacy of Cantor Finkelstein. And the concert is March 31st and features cantors including Cantor Rachel Goldman, cantors from across the globe who will be performing Cantor Finkelstein's original compositions. That's March 31st. You can get your tickets now before the event sells out. And what a beautiful Shabbat it's been for all of us here at Beth Yeshurun. We have a lot to celebrate today. And we want to thank, of course, Cantor Rachel Goldman for coming here, being part of our community, leading us in services last night and this morning. And if you haven't had a chance to meet Cantor Goldman yet, you'll have a chance to at our lunch. We have 2 rooms set up for our lunches this morning. The Congregational Kiddush will be in the Pulaski Rauch Auditorium, and that's where Cantor Goldman will be. And the Kalman Bar Mitzvah lunch will be in Stein Hall, and that will be for their family and guests. And so Cantor Goldman will be at the Kiddush lunch for all those who'd like to meet her, to get to know her even more, and to welcome this extraordinary cantor to Houston this weekend. And again, the Congregational lunch will be in the Pulaski Rauch Auditorium, and the Kalman Bar Mitzvah lunch will be in Stein Hall. Most importantly this morning, I again want to wish Mazel Tov to Nathan on a beautiful job, and I look forward to celebrating with your parents and family in Stein Hall at the conclusion of our service this morning. And now to bring our service to a close, I want to call upon all of Nathan's friends that are here. Come on up to the bima and help Nathan lead us in the last major prayer of this morning, Adon Olam. And we can turn back in our prayer book to page 211 for Adon Olam, followed by the Kiddush and the Hamotzi. Please rise now for the Kiddush and Hamotzi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lehem min haaretz. Amen.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.